Welcome back to AM Live, and we're now getting to the point where we can engage the newsmaker of the day. And at the point that we find ourselves with the election process, because it's still very alive, and that is at the Supreme Court now that the petitions have been filed there, and now we're waiting for the responses. It is important to look back at the process and just before, during, and now where we find ourselves. And who better to engage than through the eyes of an observer? And today we engage the Election Observation Group, ELOG. And just to go through just a bit of the preamble of what the report that they released not too long ago, just to describe and to give you a context of who they are. It is a permanent national platform composed of civil society and faith-based organizations committed to promoting citizen participation in the electoral process through non-partisan and impartial domestic observation and objective reporting of election. And in the name of people's participation, we will be opening the lines to you to engage Peter Aling'o, the technical advisor of ELOG, who has joined us this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you. We have interacted previously as you wore a different hat, but today it's all on the elections, and we appreciate the time that you have granted us. Now, starting here at the point where you gave the report, I believe this was the fourth report that you were giving as ELOG. In under 24 hours after the IEBC chair, Wafula Chebukati, declared William Ruto the president-elect, ELOG said the presidential election results were consistent with the tabulation that they carried out. Now, let's first start with a section of what the chairperson, Madam Ireri, said in terms of the election results that you had.
ELOG's PVT estimates are consistent with IEBC's official results for the 2022 presidential election. In light of our assessment of the election day processes, and given that IEBC figures fall within the projected ranges, the PVT projections therefore corroborates the official results. The results transmission system worked much better than expected, with over 99% of scanned images of the 34A and 34B posted on the IEBC web portal. However, we are extremely concerned about the chaos that broke out at the National Tallying Center at Bomas of Kenya, as well as a split within the IEBC, leading to some commissioners to quit from the tallying process and issue their own statements prior to the announcement of the presidential results.
Well, since that report by ELOG, there has been petitions brought forward to the Supreme Court and challenging the declaration of the president-elect William Ruto based on what the IEBC chair declared and the results therein. Do you still stand by the results that you found through your tabulation that corroborated what the IEBC chair declared as victory for William Ruto?
Thank you, Mark. I want to just clarify this, that right. Yes, as the Election Observation Group, this is our business. We invest a lot in our election observation, and we've done this over many years. So right. We have a wealth of experience in doing this. And therefore, it is that experience and consistency that we have that allows us to speak with authority yes. of what we have done. And therefore, as ELOG, we still stand firmly and we have total confidence in the elections and the PVT findings that we came out with. Okay. And this is what we are talking about here.
Right.
We are talking about parallel vote tabulation.
Yes. And you actually made that point. This was 2 days before the election to clarify that ELOG was running a parallel vote tabulation center, not parallel tally center. This point that you were making clear, the importance of it, just clarify.
Yes, and this is the most important thing, I think, which viewers and Kenyans and citizens ought to understand yes. very clearly, that what we were doing is totally different from results tabulation. We were not tabulating results, but we were deploying a scientific methodology that is driven by statistics, science, and ICT technology to enable us observe. So that is a modern way of observing elections. There are many methods that you can use.
Yeah.
One is the traditional classical general observation, which many people are used to. And that is normally what they think about when they hear about observers. They think about observers deploying observers to stations, polling stations, to collect information, gather that, and at the end of the day report.
Okay.
Now PVT is a bit different from that because this is driven by statistics and science and technology.
Right.
So PVT relies on a number of things, and this is what needs to be understood. And that is the difference between what political parties and what the media like yourselves were doing,
yes,
going to polling stations or just visiting the portal, the public portal that the IEBC put out there to retrieve those results and tally them. PVT works on the basis of a sample.
Okay.
So what we do is we sample our polling stations across the country so that we have representativeness. So we do a representative sample of all the polling stations in the country.
And in this case, for the August 9th election, how many, representatives did you have for sampling?
For purposes of the August 9th elections, we had a sample of about 1,000. So we looked across the country and sampled in a representative manner 1,000 polling stations, not just within Kenya, but also covering the one diaspora constituency. So we had 290 constituencies in Kenya covered, plus that one outside Kenya. Okay. So we had a representative samples, and this is the science behind this. We do this on the basis of looking at one, polling stations in the country, total number, by their distribution. We also look at the total number of registered voters by their distribution in the country, and use that as a basis of drawing a scientific, statistically based, accurate sample. Okay. And PVT works in the following manner, and I want this to be in a simple way understood. One is that if you go to a doctor and you say to a doctor that you have malaria, right? The doctor will not cut through you to diagnose malaria. They will just draw some, not even a pint of blood from you. Very little blood, which they will test through. And once the test is done, they will see malaria parasites. And on the basis of that, treat you. This is exactly how PVT works. It is a sample. Okay. So on the basis of the sample of 1,000 that we did and came out with, that is representative across the country, we were able to then collect information, analyze it, process it, test it, verify it, meticulously run through it. There were a lot of tests and retesting that we did to get to the accuracy level, So two things that
and it was quite accurate, just to draw the attention of the people to the report that you gave. It was quite spot on in terms of what the IEBC did announce, because whereas they announced the official IEBC results had 48.85% going to Raila Odinga in terms of the presidential count. Yours was 48.7%, and for Ruto, William Samoei, the IEBC had 50.49%, yours had 50.7%. By the way, this isn't the first time you've done it. Give us some historical perspectives. You can start with 2017 as well.
This, thank you. This is not the first time that we've done this. And in Kenya, the history of PVT hasn't been quite long. We began this process around 2010 with the referendum, you recall that. So that was the first time ELOG was able to do a parallel vote tabulation around the outcome of the referendum. And that was also pretty close. Then we did it again in 2013, then 2017, and now this is the fourth one that we are doing. And that can already tell you that, look, ELOG is talking about a wealth of experience and a level of confidence with the work that it does around PVT. And it's not just in Kenya. PVT started way back, in the 90s across the Philippines, and has been done in many countries in Africa, Nigeria, Zambia, Malawi, Uganda. Many countries in Africa, Ghana, they do it, you know, as a basis to enable citizens have confidence on the outcome. And one of the critical things...
have confidence, is it, you know, give it a stamp of approval necessarily? Because there are questions around the results so far. But when you say confidence...
No, we do not approve the official our results that are announced by the electoral management body, in this case the IEBC. That is not our business. We do observation as a citizens organization. Yeah. We are domestic. You know, we do this to enable citizens develop confidence around electoral processes and also have some confidence around the outcomes. This is what we do, to try to get a level of confidence built around this so that we do not have agitation, chaos, but a sense of belief that, look, someone professional who has done this job over the years has sat carefully, examined it, you know, and has said that, look, this is what this looks like. So what PVT does is to project. We do not give results. That is the mandate of the IEBC. We simply do a projection. And within that projection, the projection works within a margin of error. And that is what we need to understand here. So that when we say that the results fall within a certain margin, you know, we then talk about the point of estimate, which is what you were talking about simply in the last few seconds. But we also look at the lower limit of what each candidate could have gotten in that election and the upper limit. So for purposes of PVT, the margin of error enables us to then project the range within which results for each candidate should fall. So if they fall below a certain margin, something is wrong. If they fall above a certain margin, something is wrong. So we were looking at the margins, you know, based on this, and for the presidential elections, the two leading candidates, the margin of error that we had for purposes of our PVT was 2.1, you know, which is quite small and quite precise. And that is what enabled us to speak precisely and almost accurately, you know, so that our figures, our percentage, you can plus or minus 2.1%. Okay. So then the results should play within that range. Anything outside that is something that causes us to worry and ask questions whether the results have been manipulated.
But based on the margin that you had and that you came down with from your tabulation, it is above par?
Based on this, and I want to explain this so that viewers can understand this. We'll start with Raila Odinga. The IEBC official results was at 48.85. Yeah. Our point of estimate for that results was 48.7%, which was pretty close, right? Plus or minus 2%. Now, if you consider this again based on the range, it meant that Raila's percentage could have been at the lower limit 46.6 and at the higher limit 50.8%. For William Ruto, IEBC results were 50.49%. Our projection point of estimate was 50.7, again pretty close. What this means, if you apply the margin of error of 2.1%, is that William Samoei Ruto could have at the lowest gotten 48.6% and at the highest 52.8%. And this is what we are talking about. Now, and this is what is critical. PVT projection does not endorse any winner. We have not said here that so-and-so was a winner. We are simply saying here that these results should fall within this margin. And here is the explanation which a lot of people and citizens a bit controversial for citizens because they don't understand it. Yeah. When we say that the lower limit for Odinga could have been 46.6% and the lower limit for Ruto could have been 48.6%, we are saying that there is a possibility that both candidates may not have met the threshold of 50 plus 1. And this is significant, right? So for us, there is that possibility. Yeah, and these are the questions that are coming out at the Supreme Court. So whereas what the IEBC announced falls within that margin, the possibility is still there that neither of the two candidates could have passed the threshold of 50 plus 1%. And I want to emphasize this so that citizens and viewers can now understand that our work is not to rubber stamp election results. We look at it accurately, statistically, based on science, right? And that gives us an authority to speak about the accuracy, the precision with, in the context of the range within which that election, those results should fall. Anything out of that, anything above that, then becomes a question which, as ELOG, we begin to raise on behalf of citizens, because that is what we do. Right. We are the watchdog for citizens over this.
Okay, and just for clarity, Aling'o keeps saying PVT, just basically that is parallel vote tabulation, and he makes the point to clarify that they were not tallying, but they were doing parallel vote tabulation. And at this point, I believe there is a margin of error, quite a big one, on my microphone network. So let's take a break, and I'll be back. And we'll be back with Peter Aling'o. Stay with us.
Mivida Garden City, a residential development within Garden City offering stunning 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, unique amenities and an urban green convenient living. Call us today on 0722 123 000. Mivida, my home, my life.
Your generosity imesaidia kuignite a love for reading in our children. Nunua any Cadbury Story Edition packs, scan QR code, na generously share your homegrown story. Cadbury, there's a glass and a half in everyone.
At the first sign of pain, you need a solution that you can trust. Try Panadol Advance. With Panadol's Optizode formula, the tablet absorbs quickly and starts providing fast and effective pain relief you can trust. Try Panadol Advance.
The right to enter and exit member states across Africa and move freely within them, coupled with the freedom to move goods unrestricted across the continent. These are seen as key drivers for boosting Africa's economic development. The implementation of measures to promote free movement can be considered as prudent practice and even fundamental elements to breaking down the barriers that have limited economic and social integration throughout the continent and sadly even weakened the spirit of Pan-Africanism. The African Union's blueprint for the continent's social, political and economic development and integration, enshrined in Agenda 2063, recognizes free movement as a key element in achieving the continent's development goals and aspirations by allowing Africans to travel, work and live within their own continent.
Jina langu ni Bire the Vocalist, na kupata wimbo huu kama sikiza tune yako ni jambo rahisi sana. Bonyeza *812 *802# na Mungu atawabariki. Skiza na Nation, supporting local talent.
Labor markets, economies, enterprises, supply chains, governments, workers, employers. We go deeper and beyond. Business Daily. Available off and online.
Every Friday at 10 p.m., NTV is dubbed as the home to the biggest and most fascinating people on TV. We give you a fix of the latest trends in entertainment, pack your eardrums with the freshest hits, and bring you the biggest names in the 254 and beyond. Energy, synergy, fun and flair. If it's hot, it's on the trend. If it's not, well... Catch this exhilarating show every Friday from 10 p.m. with the freshest trio, Osoro Viamono, the Scratch Master himself, DJ E, and your sassy homegirl, Amina Abdi Rabar. All this on the trend, only on NTV.
This week on The Best Of, we take a one-off journey through visionary expression.
With one of the main points is the art, but it's the experience that comes with the art.
Glass is in session with the timeless benefits of recycling and repurposing.
Glass like that had only been made in the Middle Ages, and we were the first to do it here in Kenya.
And we are taken to new heights in the art world on The Best of Contemporary Art Galleries.
Everybody feel it, come around, we grind, we grind. Everybody feel it, come around, we grind, we grind. Everybody feel it, come around, we grind, we grind. Everybody, 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 everybody. Oh yeah! Everybody in the front, front, front. Everybody in the front, front, front. Everybody in the front, front, front.
The music right here on Nation FM is on another level. We're playing the best hits, the biggest hits, right here on 96.3 Nation FM. My name is Antonio Soul. It's the Nation FM Drive every single weekday, Monday to Friday, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. The best hits, the best conversation, the best guests. It's all about entertainment, business, politics, and everything in between. Call me Sugar, because I keep it sugar and spice and all things nice.
Everybody, round.
The Nairobi Hospital Accident and Emergency Center is manned by well-trained doctors and emergency nurses who are focused at saving lives. With a network of labs, you're guaranteed of accurate medical test results. The Nairobi Hospital is a center of renal excellence, providing cutting-edge technology with over 10 dialysis machines.
Welcome back to AM Live, and the margin of error on my microphone levels has been rectified, and we can continue with the conversation. My director, Jackie, will be giving the number there that you can call in to contribute, ask your question to our newsmaker of the day, and that is Peter Aling'o, the technical advisor of ELOG, the election observation group that gave a report just hours after the IEBC chairperson declared President-elect to be William Ruto, and they said in their report, their latest report on that the results that were declared by the IEBC chairperson were, corroborated with what they also did in terms of their parallel vote tabulation using 1,000 agents in different parts of the country to sample and pick a sample. And there is the issue of the margin of error. And before we took the break, Abwana Aling'o did explain that with that margin of error, it might also translate, not might, but it could also mean that neither of the two actually hit the required 50+1 mark or requirement for any winner of the presidential election. So you still feel that you're vindicated by your findings, and regardless how it goes with the Supreme Court, it wouldn't be an indictment on your findings?
No, thank you. No, it won't be, because one of the rigorous nature and the meticulous manner with which we conduct PVT. And PVT relies on observers, yes, specially trained observers, who are well versed with the business. So these observers are based and located at the 1,000 sampled polling stations. This is what we are talking
covering
about.
The 47 counties.
Covering
and
the
even
47
abroad.
counties and even abroad. So they are stationed there from opening of the polling station at 6 a.m. They actually go there at 5:30 a.m.
Okay. All right.
and stay there until the results are announced and declared and posted out there. And they take a photo of Form 34A. You remember the magical Form 34A,
yes.
right? And we'll come to that compared to Form 34B, right? So they actually observe the proceedings there carefully and meticulously and report by texting, you know, at intervals during the day and throughout the process until the end when the results are announced, and they even take a picture of the Form 34A and send it by text. So we receive information rapidly in near real time and we process it. And that is why we trust the PVT, because we receive data on the process and data on the outcome from individual polling stations. And remember, the Maina Kiai case told us that the polling station is the lowest denominator at which results for the presidential elections are final. So our observers at the polling stations are actually interacting with the lowest denominator, lowest point at which results are final. And they post us, they send and post to us those images of Form 34A, and also send us reports, including incidents that happen at the polling station throughout the day. So we are able to meticulously, rigorously process, analyze this based on data which we have full and complete trust on.
Okay.
And this is it.
By extension, may I ask if you have full trust on the parallel vote tabulation process that corroborates what the IEBC chairperson announced as the final results for the presidential election? That means that you also trust what the IEBC declared.
This is what it means. It means that we have confidence that what the IEBC declared is consistent.
All right.
The word is consistent.
Let's listen in.
Right.
Someone following the conversation, Bwana Aling'o, Zachariah from Kisii would like to put a question to you. Zachariah, good morning. And what's your question to Bwana Aling'o? Zachariah, if you can hear me, what's your question to Bwana Peter Aling'o?
Hello.
Hi. Carry on. Carry on, Zachariah. We can hear you. Zachariah, if you have your television set on, please just turn it down so that the feedback doesn't interfere with the communication, because there's a slight delay. Zachariah, carry on. There's a margin of error on that one, Aling'o. So
yes,
as we seek to clarify that, but be encouraged, you can call in wherever it is you're watching us from. Let's now kind of, I believe you want to make a final comment on this issue of the parallel vote tabulation process, and I'll grant you that because we need to move on to the other issues that came up within the election. Speak of the dissenting voices within the IEBC, something as an observer you definitely have an opinion on. But yes, just a closing remark on this.
Yes, I think the final thing that I would like to say about parallel vote tabulation is that we would like to urge citizens and political actors, including the electoral management body that is mandated to conduct and administer elections, to have confidence in what we do, because we are professionals and we do this work professionally.
Yes.
And we are guided not just by our own ethics or the IEBC Code of Conduct, but there is a special global declaration that we subscribe to, that provides the parameters and the principles upon which and within which domestic observers like ourselves do the work that we do. Okay. So that gives us, you know, that capacity to be able to do this work professionally and with a lot of rigor.
Yes.
And one final thing about PVT here, which I want to say, is that for purposes of this particular election, you know, our return rate, response rate from our observers on the ground was 99.9%.
Okay.
So it can already tell you the kind of information that came in. And for that purpose, we were able to have a confidence level of over 95%. You know,
Right.
so it is beyond any question.
All
at
right.
all.
Okay. Let's see if this next issue is beyond any question. That is the division within the electoral body, the IEBC. And we saw it play out on the day of the declaration of the presidential results, where 4 dissenting IBC commissioners said they do not stand by or cannot support the results that were going to be declared by the IBC chair, Wafula Chebukati. And this story that we're about to play for you just shows that there is definitely a division between the commissioners, 3 on one side and 4 on the other. And this is a report by Kevin Mutai, where on Monday they met to deliberate on the way to carry out the elections next Monday. 8 elections that had to be postponed, and that will be carried out on Monday. And the body language spoke volumes. Kevin Mutai's report on the IBC breakaway commissioners.
Determined to pick up the ruptured pieces of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission and sew them back together, all the commissioners of the electoral body convened for the first time Monday following a public fallout over the outcome of the presidential election. 4 commissioners who had broken away, terming the tallying process opaque, joined Chairman Wafula Chebukati for a meeting with candidates barely a week after suspending gubernatorial, parliamentary and ward elections in parts of the country.
We talked amongst ourselves and we did what we call PR for the commission to save face, because we know we didn't want the commission to be divided.
And now the electoral agency has announced that the exercise will be conducted in the next 1 week in the counties of Mombasa and Kakamega. The polls will also be held in Kitui Rural, Rongai, Kachaliba and Pokot South constituencies, as well as Nyaki West Ward and Kwenjenga Ward in Meru and Nairobi counties respectively.
All the elections which were postponed will be held on the 29th of August 2022. The Commission has already prepared, the ballot materials are already here.
The electoral agency also says that it will write to the Ministry of Education seeking permission to use schools as polling centers, or alternatively use makeshift tents to avoid disrupting learning.
We have no problem because we
At the meeting, the candidates also raised concerns about the efficiency of the election technology, citing failure of the KIMS kits on the 9th of August and whether the process had been tidied up to avoid a possible mix-up of ballot papers.
How about the elected candidates who vied successfully on the 9th? Are they allowed? They should not be allowed to act as agents, because then they become agents of intimidation. Can we then agree that if we go to a polling station and the KIMS kit is not working at 6 a.m., by 6:30 we resort to manual because it affects voter turnout.
The default identification mechanism for a voter is biometric identification, which means fingerprints. If that does not work, then there is the option of using identity card numbers, and we call it alphanumeric search. You enter the ID number into the system.
The proposed date was endorsed by all the candidates, including those from Mombasa.
Just to give context on the issues around the IEBC Commission and how divided it stands, or rather it is falling apart. And ELOG did make mention of this in the statement that we have been referring to, talking about the chaos that was at the Bomas of Kenya during the declaration, or just before the declaration of the presidential results and the division. Let's hear it from you as a technical advisor, how this reflects or, speaks to the entire process that 4 commissioners out of the 7 do not stand by their chairperson and the declaration of the president-elect. As an observer, what is your reading of this?
Thank you, Mark. I think what we saw play out at Bomas on the day of announcing of the results was unfortunate. And as observers, we were a bit concerned because we always urge and want to see a commission that is working together and delivering as one, and a commission that can publicly demonstrate the togetherness, the unity of purpose, and also the fact that, you know, the independence is safeguarded by all of them working together in unison. But we didn't see this. And there are reasons why this happened. The four commissioners that walked away of the Bomas process did explain the reasons as to why they were compelled to leave Bomas and go and address a separate press briefing conference at the Serena. You know, they have become popularly known as the Serena Four. Yes. And I think, you know, joke has it now that they have, you know, created a new vocabulary in elections. It's called opaque. Opaqueness, so to speak.
Yes.
And I understand, jokingly, a number of people are already naming their kids that are being born. Opaque so-and-so, transparent so-and-so. But jokes aside,
right,
look, because this is an important matter, right? And why is it important? Because elections are a national issue. They are not just a national issue. They are a very, very important national issue, right? Importance here I attach to this because, one, of the value which citizens and the country as a whole puts on elections and the electoral process. Not just the value, but also the kind of investment that we put around elections. For these particular elections, the budget that went into was almost 50 billion, you know, similar to the last elections, slightly less. The last elections we had about 49 point something billion Kenya shillings invested. This was a bit slightly low, but around that. So there is a lot of money invested in the elections. There is a lot of resources invested in the elections. Citizens invest a lot of emotions, and elections is the process by which we governance is entrenched. So we get leadership out of this. And therefore, it is a process which requires the body that manages it to do it with a lot of ability to be able to address themselves to the issues. You know, we want to see a body that is meticulous, a body that is rigorous, a body that pays attention, a body that does due diligence and works together. Right. And that is the reason why I say the walkout of the four commissioners was unfortunate, but they had good reasons for that. And I think one of the things which we need to look at moving forward is to clarify. There seems to be a gray area in the law with respect to, one, how the commission works.
Yes.
The number one question is, what is the commission, right? The law defines the commission as the commissioners. But we also know that the commission is confusing.
Yeah.
The commission is a commission together with the secretariat. At the same time, it is a commission when it is the commissioners alone. And again, we go back to the appointments. You know, the commissioners are appointed differently.
Right.
The chair is appointed differently. The qualifications for the chair are different. In fact, the threshold in terms of the qualification of the chair requires someone who has the experience, you know, that is equivalent to that of a judge of the High Court. You know, so the bar is so very raised already for purposes of the chairman, right, or the chairperson. But the other commissioners, their qualifications are also enlisted, but not to the level and specificity with which that of the chair is described or
prescribed. This must be derived from the responsibility that he bears on his shoulder. Yeah.
Correct. So, and you know, then, and they are also appointed differently, right? And independently, right? So the commissioners, although they work together as a commission, they are also independent of each other.
Okay.
That is what we must also remember.
All right.
And that is the reason why the law also prescribes how decisions are made, either by consensus, or if they don't agree, there is no consensus, by voting.
Okay.
So that voting implies independence of individuality in terms of their responsibilities.
All right.
The chair is simply primus inter pares, meaning the first amongst equals. He has to be a commission first,
okay.
And then chair. You know, those are two things that we need to know. And therefore, when we go back to the legislation and moving forward after the Supreme Court, the thing that we need to start looking at is, one, reforming this law, the area of responsibility,
yes,
especially when it comes to the nexus, the linkages, the many faces, the many hats that the chair wears.
And even the three petitioners are seeking interpretation of that in court because as a matter of urgency to see whether he was in his right to declare the presidential results despite the fallout with the 4 dissenting commissioners. I'm just intercepting here just to accommodate Yusuf, who's watching and is calling in from Kwale. Good morning, Yusuf. Sorry to keep you on the line for a bit. What's your question to Bwana Aling'o? Yusuf, if you can hear me, carry on with the question to Peter Aling'o.
Hello, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Go on, Yusuf.
Hello, exactly. First, I'm calling from Kwale County.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have 2 issues to make with one thing is, I want to congratulate ELOG for the exhaustive work they've actually made to deploy their staff in all the 46,229 stations, polling stations. That is excellent. My question there is, when their officers were on the ground in all the polling stations, did they take the forms that were fully signed by all the agents of the presidential candidates? And if it is so, then where is this all problem that is coming from? Because if they actually confirm if the results are exactly from the polling stations and all the parties in the stations agreed upon them, then to me, I think there is no any problem for the candidates to worry about.
Okay.
The other thing is about the commissioners. I'm really perturbed of the situation that the commissioners actually did.
Yes.
Because one thing, as the vice chair was talking about, that the entire process was quite okay from the beginning till the end. But the problem that emanated was just from the tail end of the process. If that is so, should we just check on just one particular thing at the tail end and we ignore the entire process, which they confirmed that the entire process was okay?
Right.
And if I can go deeper to that, before the dissenting commissioners did their press briefing at Serena Hotel, we had the chief agent of Azimio with the other members at the Bomas.
Yes.
They gave a statement, which that statement, as far as I remember, the chief agent talked exactly the same sentiment that the 4 dissenters talked at Serena.
Right.
So if these 2 statements, which happened just within about a minute, or just a minute, they talk here, the chief agent plus their men, a minute later, the same sentiment is being talked at Serena.
Right.
Does it mean that these people were actually colluding? And if so, it means these commissioners are actually partisan. They were put there purposely for self-interest of a certain group of politicians, which is not okay.
Thank you, Yusuf.
I can also go deeper.
Yes.
The CV of the vice chair was a chief officer for the county government of Mombasa and Governor Joho. So they've been working together for a long time. And of course, I can just relate that now. The closeness of the Governor Joe, who is one of the key figures in Azimio, talking to them directly, it means these people are actually working there under a certain influence of a political divide.
Critical
so those
questions.
are my two issues.
Critical questions you've raised there, Yusuf. Shukran for that, and Aling'o will be responding. Let's just take another question by David, who's watching from Kilifi. Good morning, David, and what's your question? David, if you can hear me, carry on when Aling'o is listening. David, as we wait on you to get back to us, some critical questions raised here by Yusuf, and he congratulates your work, and I believe you've written down some of the questions. Just first to the question on your officers. Were they on the ground taking the forms fully signed by the returning officers from all the polling stations? Clarify on that.
Thank you, Mark, and let me start by thanking Bana Yusuf from Kwale County for recognizing the good work and the professional work that we do as professional observers. And we want to assure you this is why ELOG is there, to be able to do this work on your behalf. You know, we are your watchdogs, and therefore having confidence in the work that we do adds value to us and gives us a lot of inspiration and confidence. Getting back to the questions that you asked, and allow me to state this very clearly, right? Yeah, there were a total of 46,000 plus polling stations in the country, right? Because of resources, and I want to make this very clearly.
Yes.
We were, as ELOG, we were not able to station observers in each and every of the 46,000 plus polling stations. That we couldn't do because of resources. Because it is very, very resource intensive in terms of the money required to train and deploy observers and get data from all of them, right? So what we did was that we were able to deploy in a methodological manner, structurally, in a structural and systematic manner. So we started by deploying long-term observers that were able to do long-term observation based on selected thematic areas.
Going back as far as?
Going back as far as last year, 2021. Okay. So come January of this year, we were already on the ground, observing, collecting information on the pre-election environment. You know, we stationed observers in all the constituencies, in all the counties that were able to give us information on the build-up to the election day. And then on election day, we were able to then do PVT, parallel vote tabulation, and general observation. So through parallel vote tabulation, we were able to sample 1,000 polling stations.
Right.
And in each of those sampled polling stations, we were able to deploy parallel vote tabulation observers. So 1,000 of them in the sample.
So just to answer, because we really don't have time to answer his question. His first question, you didn't have
no, we didn't have people receiving from this. Okay. But we worked on the basis of a sample.
Yeah.
On top of that, we also had general observers, over 3,000 of them, 2 in each of the 1450 electoral wards.
Okay.
So these were also distributed in a representative manner across the country.
Okay.
And where we thought there were hotspots, we deployed even many, more than 2. And on top of that, we had constituency observers that were at the tallying centers as well.
Let's move to the other question that's been raised, because you've answered that one. And Bwana Yusuf says, in the entire process, as was outlined by the Vice Chair, Cherera, the entire process, she said, was good in her initial presser, but the problem was at the tail end. So in his question, Yusuf asks, should we then be interrogating what happened at the very end in your recommendation as an observer?
I think by observation, what we do is look at the entire process as a whole.
Yes.
So we employ a holistic approach to this. And that behoves us to then look at this holistically. So we don't isolate one component from the other. And 2 is that we are still analyzing data from our general observers in terms of what happened in the polling stations outside the 1,000 sampled ones. So in the context of data that we received from the 1,000 sampled polling stations, we were not able to see anything peculiar that could have caused concern or made us to raise alarm over the process. It appeared that the E-Day process was of good quality, and that is what we have said in our statement. But that is not the final statement. We will give a final statement once we have collected all the data from our over 3,000 general observers and the others that were doing the work at the county level, those who collected the forms, 34 A's and 34 B's, they are now bringing them back to us, and we are doing thorough analysis, meticulously looking at them, and that will enable us to have a clear picture, global, overall national picture on the quality of the election day process.
That final report, possibly mid-October.
Correct.
So the other question, much as the IEBC chair, Wafula Chebukati, has been accused of irregularities and even accused of siding with one side of the political divide, and that is with the president-elect who was declared, there is a question as brought up by Yusuf that the 4 dissenting commissioners may have been colluding with the other side, that is Azimio's side, and based on what was addressed in the press conference, which seemed to be reading from the same script. What's your reading of this?
I think, yeah, the mere coincidence in what was said by the 4 commissioners and what the Azimio presidential candidate said, you know, they were quoting from the Maina Kiai case, in my view, you know. So anyone who is reading from, who is quoting a particular paragraph, a same paragraph, will appear to speak the same.
But there was also the other presser that was now done again at Serena, that brought up the issue of the numbers and the 0.01 issue, contentious issue, and it seemed to be also minutes apart from what the Azimio leader was addressing from the KICC, and seemed to be from the same script. Do you think what Yusuf is raising holds water in terms of these 4 commissioners being sided or, you know, biased?
I will not I will be very hesitant, and I will approach this with abundance of caution. I will not be hasty in making a conclusion like that. I think that has to be examined carefully before you conclude whether they were working in cahoot. I don't know, ELOG does not know that. And the fact that there is a path to everybody, you know, we all have, we come from various professions, we work at different places, and the fact that we worked here or there should not be negatively read against us. I think it is the ability and the performance level and the deliverables that we are able to give to Kenyans if we are appointed to public offices. That is what matters. And 2, I think all the commissioners took an oath of office that binds all of them, and that you know, enables them to rise above past antecedents in terms of where they worked, in terms of their experience. And I'd not be one of those who would want to look at someone's past and make a judgment that based on that past they were colluding, they were doing this. You know, take for example the allegations that came up during campaigns that one of the presidential running mates in the Kenya Kwanza movement worked in the office of the president. There were allegations that he was a PA to President Uhuru, you know. So how do you read that? You treat this as allegations.
Again, in politics, there are no permanent enemies and permanent friends. Things change overnight. But let's get back now, because we're concluding. Along those lines, because ELOG will still be following the 8 elections that will be carried out on Monday, the ones that were postponed, and we'll also be following the Supreme Court proceedings and what will be determined thereafter, and I believe this is by September 5th. And let's say one of the scenarios, and I know abundance of caution comes from your, you know, your background as a lawyer, but what say the determination ends up being that we're going back to the ballot for a re-vote for the presidential candidates, and that is especially the 2. What's your recommendation then moving forward, given the division that has been from the IEBC commissioners?
Thank you, Mark.
Should they remain or should we reconstitute?
I think this is the biggest question that we are asking, and it's in everybody's lips now, you know, as we watch over the process that is unfolding at the Supreme Court, is where will this go? I think for us now, we say the matter is now before the Supreme Court.
Right.
We don't want to judge the merits or demerits of this because of the sub judice rule, right? We now leave it to the Supreme Court judges to make a determination and tell us this is what they have made out of it. But two things here. One is that we are so worried that we are repeating elections in certain areas, Kakamega, yes, Mombasa, and 3 MPs,
yeah, the postponed ones.
Yes. And also at ward levels, 3 or 4 of them. This is unfortunate for me. And why do I say so? It's because of the worrying cost of elections in this country. One is that, you know, events like this are things which could, by virtue of diligence and people looking and working around elections, focusing professionally and discharging their duties responsibly, could have avoided. The question of Mombasa, the question of Kakamega are things that could have been avoided if due diligence was put into this matter.
Do you foresee, you know, any interference or compromise of the integrity of the process given the division at the Commission going into the postponed elections, the 8 postponed elections? Are there red flags for you there?
Yes, there are red flags that we need to watch in terms of how the Commission is going to conduct these remaining elections and how they are going to relate with each other. And we want to see a Commission that will nonetheless, despite the fact that they are taking us back again to an election in these regions and the possibility of another election, should the Supreme Court say, you know, we want moving forward a commission that can still give us, make us believe that they can still deliver. They still have the ability, capacity, professionalism, and confidence. But if this continues, and we've seen them going back to work together, you know, so that harmony, that unity is what we want to see. That gelling is what we want to see, so that we still can be able to, as Kenyans, have the confidence in the Commission, because that is what is important. The walking out of bombers and the separation that we saw amongst the commissioners had a dent, so to speak, and did cast some doubts on the workings of the Commission.
All right.
And that also did cast some doubts, and that is why we are seeing petitions and petitioners relying on those, the acts of, you know, walking out of IEBC and the statements that the Commission has made.
Okay.
And that is what we want to avoid moving forward. And I want to go back to one,
we have to
the
finalize.
Recruitment of the commissioners.
This is something that will definitely be in your summative report that you say would be in about 60 days, which is mid-October, thereabouts.
Correct.
And as you follow this, you've pronounced yourself about the issues, questions around the recruitment of the IEBC commissioners. Bwana Peter Aling'o, we'd have to end it here, but the conversation continues. And thank you for your time as the ELOG technical advisor and actually founder of ELOG, a body that has been following the elections in Kenya. Not just these elections, they have been following this over the years, since 2010, following the elections and the major turning points of our country constitutionally as well. And this is going to be another one, a big one that you'll be watching. That is the Supreme Court determination on September 5th. We have to jump out of studio and make way for Winnie Lubembe on Your World. I saw her running into studio, almost tripped over. That means she's very excited to get into the conversation. So let's make way for that. Thank you for watching AM Live. Thank you to Yusuf who called in. Unfortunately, we weren't able to listen to David from Kilifi and Zakaria from Kisii. But let's try do this again next week on Wednesday with Newsmaker. Good morning and have a great day.